There's really no reason for me to even exist. My parents weren't even trying to get pregnant when they had me. My mom told me, she told me I was an accident. She wasn't trying to insult me or anything. She just kind of mentioned it like it's a funny story, I guess. But yeah, that and I recently had a bit of a health scare. Turns out I get migraines now, I guess, or ocular migraines, which sucks, but I was worried that I had brain cancer or something, so at least it's not that bad. But over the last week, while I was just sitting around the house, freaking out about whether I'm about to suddenly drop dead from a brain aneurysm, I actually started to come to terms with the fact that there's really no good reason for me to even exist, and there never was a reason for me to exist. The only reason I was ever even born in the first place is because I guess my dad somehow convinced my mom to let him boink her, which was probably the last time that ever happened, by the way. Because as far back as I can remember, my parents always just hated each other. But yeah, I guess at some point they did it, and they're just nice Christian folks, so they're against abortion, and that's why I exist. That is the only reason. I'm not meant for greatness. I don't have any purpose. Nobody ever took me under their wing or anything like that. I mean, if anything, I feel like my teachers and coaches throughout my childhood always just kind of ignored me in favor of all the other kids. The only thing of note that I have ever accomplished is being able to have a very small, tiny, minuscule amount of success here on YouTube. And, obviously, you can look at my subscriber count and everything. This is my most successful channel I've ever had. You can see how many views I get. I don't think that hardly even qualifies as a successful venture. So I don't know what it feels like. I can't even imagine what it feels like to have a moment of glory in any proportion, however big or small. I can't even imagine it. The only experience I ever had was sitting on the sidelines or sitting alone in the dugout while all the other kids actually got to play. I don't even think I'm that unathletic. I definitely never could have been an all star at any sport. Just from my genetics, I don't think there was any chance, like any foreseeable alternate timeline where I would have been able to go pro in a sport or even like be good at a sport. But if I had got more playing time, if my coaches didn't just ignore me, I might have at least got, I would have had at least a couple of good moments. I maybe would have felt a little taste of glory, but I never even got the chance. And I was always too shy to advocate for myself. My parents should have been the ones that made sure the coaches let me play more. My parents should have made that happen. It's got to be the parents that do that sort of thing. And they should have done something to make sure that my teachers at school actually acted like I was even there, because they pretty much ignored me. But I don't know, maybe nobody noticed there was any problem since I did make pretty good grades as a kid. So, so looking back on my life over the past week or so, as I'm sitting there thinking I have some kind of potentially serious health problem, I kind of just came to terms with the fact that if I did perish, so what? So what? My parents would be sad, I guess, for a little bit, but ultimately, they'd probably be better off. That's the honest truth. I'm not an asset in any way in their lives. I'm just a leech. I'm just a leech. My baby cousin would probably miss me for a day or two, but he's too young to actually even remember me when he gets older if I did expire. And I do the best I can for him. But honestly, he'd probably be just as well off without me. So there's no reason for me to exist, and there never has been. You want to know the closest I ever came to having a moment of glory? Because I think most people do have small moments of glory. And I think that is a reason to exist. If you have some moments, even if it's just a small moment of glory, a small amount of glory, I think that's a reason to exist. That's something to live for. Like, imagine doing a good job at work and getting a bonus for it or something like that. Or approaching a woman in public and, she's hesitant at first, maybe she's playing hard to get, but then you somehow manage to seal the deal. Then you're just laying there in bed afterwards, just basking in the glory of a successful conquest. That would be a reason to exist. But I've never even had one small moment of glory. I've not had anything like that. The closest I ever came was, it's pathetic, but the closest I ever came was back in Little League. Okay, so picture this. I was probably 12 years old when this happened, and my team was down by one. It was the last inning, 2 outs. The guy before me had just struck out, so now I was up to bat. And I was the second to last batter in the lineup because I sucked. But yeah, I come up to bat. We had a man on third. Okay, I think I was batting a straight 0 batting average that season. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means I sucked so bad that I literally never hit the ball. Okay, I literally never got a hit the entire season up to that point. So I get up to bat in this very high pressure situation, and I look over to the coach and he's giving me the sign to bunt. Okay, so I showed bunt. It was a bad pitch. I pulled back. Coach tells me to swing away. I whiffed, of course. So 1 ball, 1 strike on the count. Okay, coach gives me the sign to bunt again. And I remember this like it was all happening in slow motion. The pitcher throws it right down the middle, and I angled my bat toward the third baseline, just like we had practiced in practice. I connected with the ball, and it was just an absolutely perfect bunt. The ball goes rolling slowly down the foul line, the third base foul line, in the perfect trajectory where it's like, everybody's thinking, is it gonna stay fair? Is it gonna go foul? It was hard to tell, which is exactly what you want because it makes all the fielders hesitate. Okay, so the ball did stay fair. The other team's third baseman picked it up, but he was afraid to throw me out because then the guy that we had on third might run home and tie the game. So I got on base. The crowd was going wild. Everybody was shouting, everybody was cheering, everybody in the bleachers was standing up, and everybody on the other team just looked stressed as fuck. The other team's coach looked like he was about to have a heart attack. It was a weird feeling for me getting that just tiny little taste, almost tiny little taste of glory. It was a weird feeling for me because I had never had that before, and I've never had that since. But it didn't last long. So what happened was then the next guy came up to bat. So he was literally the very bottom of the batting order. And the only reason I think that this kid came after me in the order is because my coach lived across the street from me and he was kind of acquaintances with my dad. So otherwise, this other kid probably would have batted ahead of me in the order, but he was pretty much about as bad as I was. I think he also had a 0 batting average. So there was a wild pitch while he was batting. So I was able to steal to second. Okay, so then we had a man on third, and there was me on second. We're down by 1, final inning, 2 outs. we were the home team. So if I managed to score, then that's the go ahead run, right? So then it would be game over and we win. Okay, so this kid at the bottom of the order who has literally never even made contact with the ball all season, if I recall correctly, he somehow manages to hit a blooper right over the second baseman's head. I don't know what happened. I think the outfielder bobbled it or something, or maybe he made a bad throw. But as I was running to third, the coach is just swinging his arm like a damn windmill, telling me, go, 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 telling me to run home. So I made it home safe, standing up, game over, we win the game. Okay, so none of this was possible without me making that game-saving bunt. Okay, so that perfect bunt that I laid down, that was crucial to our victory. So in my mind, and I still feel like I deserve some credit. And at the time in my mind, I was like, yeah, I definitely deserve credit for this. Now, I understand that the other kid, the kid that hit the walk-off single, he was also in a very high-pressure situation. And I do believe that in that situation, he deserves more glory than I did. Sure, he deserved more glory. But if I did not lay down that perfect bunt, he wouldn't have even got up to bat because the game would have been over if I got out. Okay, so after I crossed the plate, scoring the game-winning run, I looked up and I expected to see, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I expected, I guess. I just thought there'd be somebody there telling me what a good job I did or something. But by the time I looked up, everybody was already running out of the dugout and they weren't running toward me. The whole team, including the coaches, they all ran out and dogpiled the kid that hit the walk-off. So I just kind of jogged over there and sheepishly stood at the periphery of the dog pile while everybody else was starting to stand up. I still expected to get my props eventually. Like, I thought once everything had calmed down and we all gathered around for the post-game pep talk, that's when I would get recognized for my bunt. I was sure that one of the coaches would say something. They had to. My bunt was literally crucial to that victory. So I expected at least one of the coaches to say, hey, good, nice bunt. Nice bunt. That was very important and a good job. I don't know how you could possibly ignore that, but that's what happened. It was like nobody even cared about my crucial contribution to our victory. I already know that everybody thought it was over with as soon as I stepped up to the plate. And the thing is, that's what kicked everything off. I even remember when I was on first, after I got on base, after my bunt, I looked over to the dugout and I could see all my teammates turning their hats inside out. Okay, so they were putting on their rally caps. And for those of you that have never played baseball, basically it's just something people do for good luck. After somebody gets a big hit or a couple hits in a row, sometimes people will turn their hats inside out and everybody starts chanting, rally, rally, rally. So it's just something people do for good luck, right? After a big moment. Well, it was my bunt this time that got everybody to put their rally caps on. Okay, that was me. I did that. And I got cheers in the moment. Okay, in the moment, I felt a little bit of glory. I felt like people were cheering for me. But after the game, I mean, they dogpiled this kid. They gave the other kid, they gave him the game ball, which is a big deal. Everybody was patting him on the back. I remember in the post-game huddle, the coach even told the one kid that was already on base when I came up to bat, the kid that was on third base, the coach told that kid that he did a good job with like faking out the third baseman, that he was going to run home after I bunted. So The coach did mention my bunt indirectly, but only to praise this other kid for his base running. Literally nobody ever told me that I did a good job. I got 0 props, 0 glory for doing what was essentially a necessary part of how we won the game. And I remember on the ride home, my dad just said something like, "Finally, you hit the ball." And then he goes, "Well, I guess it technically was a hit." And that's all he said. That's all my own father said about that. Which was literally my best, like the most important thing I ever did in any game, in any sport that I ever played as a kid. That was my big moment. That's the most crucial contribution I ever made to fucking anything in my life, pretty much. And nobody cared. And yes, I do still think about it. I'm still mad about it, okay? I'm still sitting here right now seething about it every freaking time I think about it, because that was my moment, or it should have been my moment. And by the way, I don't know if I even mentioned this, but winning that game clinched our spot in the city tournament. So it was actually a big deal. If we had lost that game, we probably would not have made it to the tournament that year. So our season would have ended earlier, basically. Okay, so everybody got to play at least a few more games because of what I did. And nobody cared. You know, what the point I'm making is it wasn't just like a regular game, okay? It actually mattered. And I understand that the other kid got most of the glory. He deserves it. He deserves like 2/3 of the glory for that situation easily, because he had a hit. It was important. You know, it's more flashy, more impressive than a bunt. And it's probably more difficult to get a hit than to lay down a perfect bunt, I guess. But why is it that I got no glory? I got no props. I got no credit. No, not one of my coaches even said, "Hey, good job." No one on my team came up to me and said, "Hey, that was a good bunt." You know, nobody, nothing. It was nothing. Nobody cared. But whatever. I'm just telling this story because that was the closest I ever got to doing something that mattered. And that was just a little league game when I was 12. And apparently it wasn't even a big deal, I guess, because nobody seemed to care. Okay, so that's the most impact that I have ever had on the world. That was the peak of me actually having a reason to exist. Just for that moment, so I could lay down that bunt, just for nobody to care. That was the only reason I ever had to exist, for that, to do that. And nobody gave a hoot. Nobody gave a damn about it. And you know, these days, I mean, I take care of my baby cousin, so maybe that's something I do that's important, but it's not like he'd be an orphan without me. He'd still be taken care of pretty much just as well if I never existed. So I feel like it's not just that I have no purpose in life, because I don't have a purpose, but there's also just no reason whatsoever in the grand scheme of things for me to even exist. There's no purpose for me. I don't have a purpose in life, and the world doesn't have a purpose for me. I'm just here by pure chance. I think that's a good way to summarize my entire life up to this point. I'm just here. Like, I exist, I do exist, but I have no impact on anybody or on anything. Even through these videos, even on my old channel where I had 1 million views on one of my videos, you might think if 1 million people watched a video that I made, surely it must have meant something to at least one person. But I know that it didn't, because that video was pretty much just mindless slop. It was nothing important. I did write an original script and everything, and I edited it real nice. It had the nice editing quality, but the topic was just, I'm not going to say exactly what it was. It was nothing important. Okay, it was nothing important. My video didn't change anybody's life. None of my videos have ever changed anyone's life, even slightly, I'm pretty sure. I have never done anything that has had any impact, positive or negative, on anybody's life, other than, yeah, I would say I've probably had an overall negative impact on my parents' lives. But, in that case, it's kind of like whatever. It's their fault for having me. So I don't really blame myself too much for that. And it's like, I think back to every job I've ever had. I don't think I ever made an impact. I don't think anything I've ever done in work or in my personal life has ever really had any meaningful impact. I made some small changes to some drawings back when I was an engineer, and I drew up some drawings for some custom tools that were requested by some of our customers. But that was just, that was a situation where they would tell me exactly what they wanted, and I just made the drawings. I honestly think the average middle school student could do what I did. It was really nothing special, but that's probably the most meaningful thing that I ever did in my time as an engineer. I can't think of a time I ever helped somebody, either in my work life or in my personal life. I don't think I've ever helped anybody. And it's like, I don't even really see myself as a complete failure or anything either. I mean, objectively, I am a complete failure, I suppose, but I don't feel like I really have a self-esteem issue. I just don't think I have any reason to exist. I think I accurately assess my amount of esteem. So, like, it's not a self-esteem issue. I accurately believe what I believe about myself. But I don't know. It's like I'm not sitting around all day thinking that I hate myself. I usually, when I think about it, I don't hate myself. I don't think, or I wouldn't say that I hate myself. So I don't even really have that poor of self-esteem. I just don't have a reason to exist. And by the way, I'm saying all this, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea and be all worried about me. I would never commit the final action, if you know what I mean. I would never select myself and press the delete key. That's just not something that I would ever do. That would just create more problems for my family. And I just never really wanted to do that anyways. So nobody needs to worry about me like that. But I'm just saying, I don't have any reason. I don't have any purpose. The only reason I'm even here in the first place is just because once upon a time there was two losers that decided to settle for each other, and I guess they did the deed at least one time, probably because they were bored, and that's it. Not even trying to create a new life. They weren't trying to create a new life. They were just bored. And now I'm here. And I'm not contributing to anything. I'm not really even doing anything. I'm just existing. I make videos that maybe a few people listen to. They listen to this in the restroom while they're doing their secondary business. And that's it. That is my meaningless contribution to society. Maybe a tiny small amount of entertainment for like a dozen people out there. I don't know. Yeah, I know I get like a few thousand views on most of my videos, but you got to understand, most of the people that listen to my videos, they were either like not really paying attention, or maybe they just fell asleep and it just auto played. So they didn't even actually listen to it. And a lot of people, it still counts the view if somebody only listened to 42 seconds of my video and then they clicked off, okay? That still counts as one view as far as the view counter is concerned. So don't think that I actually have thousands of people listening to my every word. That's not what's happening, okay? If you made it this far into this video, then you are one of the few, okay? You are a rare individual for that. And I do appreciate you. But I'm also well aware that you're wasting your time by listening to this. It's nothing productive. If you find it entertaining, so be it. That's fine. I listen to videos that other people make that are kind of similar to this, I guess. So I can understand why that might be something some people find entertaining, but there's no value in it, is what I'm trying to get at. It's not something that even needs to exist. So, and I'm only doing it for selfish reasons. I only do it to maybe get a little bit of validation in the comments and make a little bit of money, which is not much. It's all meaningless. And that's, these videos, this channel, this is all that I contribute to society. And I don't think it's a positive contribution. I don't want it to be like this, like just talking about my life in general. I don't want it to be like this. I would love to do something important, or at least, not even necessarily important, but I would like to at least feel like there's a good reason for me to exist. Like when you think about a doctor or a fireman or something like that, there's a good reason for a person like that to exist. And really, most people I know personally, if I think about it, I can usually think of a reason for each person I know to exist. There's usually some kind of reason, like either they make a positive contribution to society, or somebody depends on them, or even just, if I could just make somebody laugh every now and then, that might even be enough to give me some purpose. That might make me feel like, hey, there is a reason for me to exist. But I don't even have that. Maybe a few people have laughed here and there at some of the jokes I've made in some of my videos, but, I don't know. And even if that happens, it feels pretty meaningless to me because I don't see them react. I'm not seeing people laugh to my jokes, so I don't even get any value out of that. Doesn't make me feel any better. And truly, they're mostly laughing at me anyways, not really laughing in the way I intended. So yeah, nothing about these videos and making these videos really gives me any purpose. I just do it because whatever. I guess I'm bored, I don't know. I already know I am never going to reproduce. I done been accepted that a long time ago. I'm not ever going to reproduce. I will never get married. I will never find love. I'm pretty sure I'll never even have a one night stand or anything. Like I'm never gonna pay for it because I don't even want to do that. So I'm never even gonna get to do the thing that is like the thing that pretty much all men want to do the most all the time. I'll never even get to do that once. I'm pretty sure I have already peaked as far as romantic success in my life. So it's just saying this out loud, it's so over. It's so, like, there's really no reason for me to exist. I'll most likely never be employed again. There's absolutely no reason for me to think at this point that I will ever contribute to society at all in any way whatsoever. I'll never contribute to anything. So there's no reason for me to exist. I am reasonless. I am purposeless. And I guess I will just remain this way, rotting away in my room until I expire. And when that happens, nobody will even care. Please check out some of my other videos, by the way, if you liked this one, I guess. Whatever. Bye.